Welcome to another legal talk on eRadio with Hahn and Hahn attorneys, and today joined by Janusz Luterek from Hahn and Hahn. We're talking about food safety when dining out. Well, not a lot of us can afford to dine out nowadays, but it is quite nice. It appears to be quite a big luxury nowadays that when you can indeed go out, it is quite a treat. Janusz, welcome back to a legal talk. How's it going?
No, very well, thank you. As we're heading off into winter and the days get shorter.
Yeah, there's definitely a chill in the air. Something is very, very different, I must tell you. Janusz, today talking about food safety when going out for a nice meal at a restaurant. But firstly, let's just go back a bit. What does it actually take to open a restaurant?
Yes, this is a really interesting point because you used to often get this, that people would take a package, a retrenchment package, and what do? They go open a coffee shop or a restaurant. Clearly, some of them had no idea at all about food safety. They cook well at home, and somebody says, "Ma, jy kook so lekker, jy moet 'n restaurant gaan oopmaak." And then they would go off and start preparing food and selling it to the public. But it's not that simple. Because at the end of the day, you're now dealing with far larger quantities of food. Food gets stored, gets handled by other employees, and you're suddenly in a position where you can poison people. So what happens is, in terms of the law, if you want to open a dining establishment, a restaurant, a cafeteria, a taste neighborhood, what you need to have, firstly, in South Africa, is you need something called a Certificate of Acceptability of Food Premises. Now, your local municipality has to come and inspect the premises and make sure that they are suitable for handling food safely, preparation of food, that the surfaces are made of something that can be cleaned properly. You're not using an old wooden plank to cut things up on, and so on. So that's the first thing. The second thing that's important is that the person running it has to have some training in food safety and in hygiene. And that's a legal requirement. That's not a nice to have. Those people have to go on some sort of diploma or some sort of course. I'm not talking about a university degree, but it should be 4 or 5 days of training where they get taught how to handle food safely, how to be sure that the fridges are running properly, and so on. And especially in these days of load shedding. If the power goes off for 4 hours, are your ingredients all being stored at the right temperature and so on? So from a point of view of running the restaurant, now the premises have to be approved. The person that's running it needs to have some qualifications. So it's no longer just a matter of, let's go and open a restaurant because you make such a nice braai or something, and then we'll just start selling it.
Janusz, I was thinking about it just the other day, food safety and quality, especially with the load shedding in South Africa. I was wondering, with all the fridges going on and off all the time, generators sometimes not kicking in, you got to wonder about the quality of the food that they serve and how fresh it is. But is there any way that you could know if a restaurant has had complaints about food poisoning?
So here's the difficult thing, that in South Africa, we don't have a system like you would in Australia or in the UK, where the local municipality will come and put a sign up in the window and they give you an A or a B or some sort of food safe, or New York, for example, where they put up a notice to warn you, this place has had incidents before, be careful. In South Africa, really, all we can rely on is on social media, and in an extreme case, maybe on a news story on a channel such as yours, or in on a local radio station. And that's, of course, very dicey or on a review on TripAdvisor or something. And that's, of course, very dicey because someone with an axe to grind can go on there and post nonsense and say, no, don't go eat there, they're going to poison you. Meanwhile, it's the nicest, neatest, cleanest restaurant in town. They just don't like the owner. So it's a very difficult thing in South Africa, is that when you walk into a place, you need to exercise your judgment. Does it look clean? Does it look organized? Do the people, are their hands clean? Are they rubbing their face the whole time? Just got to apply some common sense in deciding whether or not to eat in a particular restaurant. But there's no obvious way from knowing when you approach the door, will this place make you sick or will you have a wonderful experience?
I kind of like the restaurants where you have the open kitchens where you can actually watch the people, the chefs, making the food. A lot of sushi restaurants do that. You can actually see them making it kind of from this open kitchen. But let's say you go out now and you have a lovely evening out, dining out, and now you've got food poisoning a couple of hours after you've been to this restaurant. Is there anything you can do after this?
Yeah, so this gets very tricky, and I'll tell you this, that a lot of people think the last thing they ate is the thing that made you sick. But you must remember, food poisoning in general is some sort of bacterial infection, and bacteria take time to grow. So you typically won't get sick 20 minutes after you left the restaurant, unless you got a fish allergy or shellfish allergy and you're really ill from that. It's not that there's something wrong at the restaurant. If you're allergic to something, it's not the restaurant's fault. But if you're going to get food poisoning, usually it's a number of hours later, let's say 4 to 8 hours. And in some cases, it can even be longer, but those tend to be rarer. So if you're getting really sick, the first thing you should do is obviously notify the restaurant and say, look, we all ate at your restaurant and now we're all ill. And I'll comment on that in a second about everybody getting sick or only some people getting sick. And then if you wanted to go to lodge a claim, the first thing you should do is go to the hospital and get them to, unfortunately, take a fecal sample so that they can look for the bacteria that could possibly have made you ill. And then obviously get a doctor to diagnose you and write a report. It's not sufficient to contact the restaurant and say, oh, I got so sick after eating there, I want you to give me 10,000 rand. They're going to say, well, we had 199 other guests that night and you're the only one who got sick. So from the point of view of how do you know if it's a particular place that made you sick or maybe there's something going round, if there were 4 or 5 of you dining and the 2 of you that had the chicken both got sick, but nobody else got sick, then it's probably quite a good indicator there's something wrong with the chicken. Funny enough, if everybody at the table got sick, but you all ate different things, then it's probably not the restaurant. Because the chances that everything they served was off are quite low.
Yeah.
But the chances then are that it's some sort of stomach bug going round. With the exception, and unfortunately we're living in load shedding South Africa, if there was long load shedding, let's say 6 or 8 hours, and the fridges went off, it's possible everything is slightly off. But that is a more unlikely scenario. But yeah, I think back to your one question that you posed, you said, with load shedding and power and fridges going on and off, even more reason why the person running the restaurant needs some training in food safety and hygiene, because they need to understand that food cannot be stored at room temperature if it's raw fish, raw chicken, and if your temperature has gone out by that much, as hard as it is, you'll need to throw those ingredients away and get fresh ones.
Exactly. It's very risky. I also think when the food arrives at the table, use your senses, use your nose, kind of that first taste also. You can taste when something is a little bit off or a little bit funny. Sometimes you can smell it, especially with chicken, but not always.
No, not always. Look, it's a good indicator. If it doesn't smell right or doesn't taste right, stop immediately.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously a good indicator. There are some things that can kill you that don't change the taste at all. I don't know if you remember the listeria in the polony case.
Yes.
Now, none of that polony had any off taste. It was, in fact, all looked perfectly fine. But yet, a couple of hundred people died and thousands got ill. So it's not always a matter of that you can smell it or taste it. But certainly, if you can smell it or taste it, don't eat it.
It's a bit of a gamble, but it's still nice to go and dine out instead of cooking at home. You can poison yourself by cooking at home as well anyway.
Exactly. Look, I've got a colleague in America, a food safety lawyer, and he always says there's certain things he won't eat. He will never eat meat that's not well done. So he doesn't eat rare or medium rare or steak. Now, in the case of South Africa, where we've got load shedding, it's probably very good advice, because if you cook the meat properly, even if it wasn't stored at the right temperature, it'll probably still be okay to eat. And pretty much the same for chicken. If it's cooked right through at high temperature, it'll kill almost anything in the chicken. So eating food that's well cooked through is one way to reduce your risk. Then there are certain foodstuffs which are very prone to foodborne illness, as they call it, but yet you hardly ever hear about it in South Africa. Sprouts, these sprouts they use in salads, what microgreens.
Yeah.
Those things. Because they're growing, I don't know, in manure or something, and then they rinse it in some water and then they serve it to you.
Oh my gosh.
It's not sterilized or sanitized, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you have a stir-fried veg, it's been heat treated and probably killed all the bacteria. But if you're eating these raw microgreens and things, the risk is on you.
So even the vegetarians can get sick. Not just the meat eaters.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, this is interesting, it kind of opens the eyes when going out and dining, Yeah, sometimes when you walk into a restaurant, you also get a feeling of the hygiene in there, you can kind of see what kind of establishment is it, if the tables are clean enough, how the staff are dressed. You kind of get an idea whether it's clean or not, if you can't see the kitchen.
Absolutely. If the restaurant looks chaotic, you can imagine that there are cleanliness and hygiene problems.
Yeah.
If it looks well run and everything looks crisp, chances are the kitchen's the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's not always easy to tell because we can't see the kitchen, but that's why I like those open kitchens at some of the restaurants where you can kind of see what's going on in there. Janusz, thank you so much. This has been very interesting. As always, thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge with us, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. Nice chatting to you again.
Same here. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Are you or your business in trouble and struggling to find a solution? Call Hahn & Hahn Attorneys as we assist clients in finding solutions. We specialize in consumer and food law, commercial and construction law, forensic investigations and administrative law. Visit hahnlaw.co.za. That's HAHN. We assist clients nationwide. Hahn & Hahn Attorneys, because we care. Don't miss Legal Talk with Hahn & Hahn Attorneys, Wednesday mornings at 10 on eRadio.